Welcome to Armchair Athletes. I am the short king himself, the king of terrible beard growth, Reno Ramirez.
And I am the king of semi-decent beard growth, Ed.
Yeah, yours is way better than mine. Mine's
Well, that's
patchy.
not
Look at
saying
this.
much.
That's a fair point, though. Look at this, man. My my facial hair looks like a geographical map. Um. Anyways, we're talking about the Houston Rockets today. Last time we talked about the Pacers, right? We talked about the Pacers. We're talking about the Houston Rockets. Fear the beard. It is a new era in Houston. What did we do last year?
So last year, we, as in the Rockets, went 44-28, and that was good for the fourth seed in the West as well. So earlier in our last video in Indiana, you were talking about how they went 44-28 for the fourth seed. The Rockets also went 44-28 for the fourth seed. Granted, that was, because it's short season, but they lost to the eventual champs LA in round two.
So last year, the Houston Rockets went all in on Mike D'Antoni's wet dream of going micro ball. And they traded Clint Capella, their only big, who's really good at doing big type stuff. Clint Capella is not a bad player, and he had a pretty solid contract, $16 million a year for a young center who's up and coming. I mean, you can probably get centers cheaper than that, but Mason Plum is getting paid $13 million a year, and he was a backup big, so you can do worse too. They went all in getting Robert Covington. They went all in going small, putting poor PJ Tucker at the center position, getting banged up. Gosh, poor guy. But that was the first and only season of Russell Westbrook in a Houston Rockets jersey because Harden didn't want to play with CP3 anymore and wanted to play with his buddy Russell, and he lost the same way he's been losing by not performing in the playoffs. So we didn't learn anything from the team. We learned James Harden's going to do James Harden stuff. We're going to learn Mike D'Antoni is a coach that can win you a lot of games, but he's not a coach that can win you a playoff game. It reminds me of Mike Budenholzer a lot. He doesn't make a lot of changes. We didn't learn much about him last year. They're very underwhelming. This whole Westbrook, you have two MVPs in your team type of situation. People are saying this is the team. Westbrook had a good year, especially that last part of the season. He was playing really well. He was like the Rockets' de facto center on offense, just crashing the board. But once the bubble came around and the playoffs came around, he became old Russell Westbrook, chalking up shots he shouldn't have had making plays. He shouldn't have had done. James Harden just wasn't James Harden. If James Harden can be James Harden in the playoffs, he would have a ring already because he's that great of a player.
Yeah.
But he's not himself. He doesn't need to elevate his game to win a ring. He needs to be himself to win a ring.
He needs to not let his game diminish in the playoffs.
Yeah, and that's the thing. So few players have that to be said about him. Like Kevin Durant does not need to be better to win a ring. He just needs to be Kevin Durant. LeBron James does not need to be better to win a ring. He just needs to be LeBron James, and he'll win a ring.
Yeah.
James Harden needs to learn that, just play his game. And also, being a dick. The guy wants to run the Harden show, throughout the whole franchise. Everyone back up and we'll go ISO for an hour and a half. I want to chalk up a million balls, and it just didn't work. Anyway, so what we do last season, buddy?
All right. So we brought in Christian Wood, and let's hear a little bit about him.
I like the signings. I actually do like the signings. I also didn't put John Wall. I should have put John Wall and Russell Westbrook for subtraction additions. That's my bad. Additions, I think they did good by getting bigs back into the lineup. You can't be a team without traditional bigs. That's just not traditional, but at least have some sort of big man presence.
You need a 7-footer.
Yeah. And
or at least 6'10".
At least 6'10". Christian Wood is a good-ass center. He's young. He's only like 25 years old. He can protect the rim. He can shoot the rock. He can score down low. He can rebound. He can give you screens. Christian Wood is a fantastic center for James Harden. And DeMarcus Cousins, if he can get back to DeMarcus Cousins type of levels, at least where he was with the Wizards or not Wizards. I'm sorry, the Warriors. I think that's another good signing. I like those signings. Sterling Brown's a kind of a 3-point shooter, just another shooter. And then they obviously traded Russell Westbrook for John Wall, which is the biggest story of the year, which I think they kind of lost in that trade. They lost uh, Russell Westbrook for John Wall, someone that is a question mark. We don't know where his health is.
Yeah.
He's a solid passer, but we don't know how well he is going to be. His game, a lot like Westbrook, is so predicated on his athleticism and his speed that we don't know what we're going to get, because a lot of his plays and stuff like that is catching people off his first step or going in transition, being able to dish it to the big or dish it to a shooter because he has eyes on him because he's so quick and so athletic, he can burst to the rim. He's also not a great 3-point shooter. Now, he does look for the pass more than he looks for the shot, so that's a plus, especially when you're playing with James Harden. But I have question marks on him, and I have question marks on DeMarcus Cousins' health. They lost Robert Covington, which that's a trade I wouldn't have done. Robert Covington's a fantastic 3-and-D guy. He's really good at rotating and controlling the defensive settings. Jeff Green and Austin Rivers has played their time, especially Austin Rivers. They've played their time in Houston. It was time for them to have a new scenery, and that was about it.
Yeah, and then we didn't have any draft picks to discuss. So let's go ahead and move on to the rotation. So you talked a little bit about kind of how or who the rotation is a little bit. Let's go ahead and go over the rest of the rotation.
I don't mind this rotation at all. The starting lineup's not bad. Now that's if the James Harden drama, if he saves that for his mama, then he's good. If there's no drama, there's no issues. They listen to Steven Silas, who that's another thing. That's another addition. They lost Mike D'Antoni. They lost Daryl Morey. They got a new GM. They got a new head coach. Steven Silas, who's their new head coach, is greatly is vastly loved by the NBA community. He's been an assistant coach for 20 years. His father was a head coach. Last year he was the assistant coach for the Mavericks under Rick Carlisle, as we all know, is one of the greatest head coaches of all time, top 15-ish, top 20-ish maybe. And specifically, he was Luka Doncic's kind of personal coach to kind of help him. So that's fantastic with him and James Harden, because that means he can maneuver around great talent like James Harden and John Wall. I love this starting lineup. I really do. Eric Gordon, who is an underrated defender who can score. He played really well in the playoffs. PJ Tucker, he's your guy. He's the mean guy of the team. Christian Wood, we talked about him. John Wall, James Harden. The bench, I like it. I don't love it. DeMarcus Cousins is a question mark. I like Daniel House. He was their best. Well, he's one of their what's the word I'm looking for? He was a really good random player that popped up in the bubble last year. He was playing defense. He was hitting shots. He was an excellent 3-and-D guy. Sterling Brown, Ben McLemore, and Chris Clemens are all right. I don't love their bench. I see a lot of minutes being played from the starters. I think they need to go get another scorer off the bench, like a Lou Will, maybe. Maybe there's another team where they go get Scary Terry or something like that. This is a team that needs a guard off the bench to help put the ball. I mean, maybe they go sign Jamal Crawford, something like that. At least a little bit of a boost. So We'll see.
Yeah. So I really like the starting lineup as well. I think that they will play because Harden's going to ball. That's just it's going to happen. I think this team, their success will be determined off of how John Wall plays. I think if he comes in and him and Harden, they mesh really well. They play. This team will be great. And we'll move on to the vibe check while we're talking about this. But my biggest concern with this starting lineup and just this team in general is there's one ball, and both John Wall and James Harden make their offense off of having the ball. Now, James Harden can catch and shoot, but he has never done that in Houston. He hasn't done that since OKC on the bench. So, and even then, he was the ball handler then. He has never been a catch and shoot guy. He's not that type of player. He's an ISO player. So I think this team's success will be predicated off of how are they going to be together? How are they going to mesh? And what we get out of DeMarcus Cousins off the bench.
So the first part of that, I don't agree with that so much because I think John Wall is such a pass first type of guy. It's not going to be an issue. He doesn't mind. He also everyone when they're in the Houston Rockets facility, they know who's the face of the franchise. So I don't think there's much of an issue. I like the DeMarcus Cousins point. I think if he's injured or doesn't play well because of his injured past, I think they're gonna hurt because of it. On paper, that starting lineup is one of the best starting lineups in the league. Yeah. On paper. But Harden and his drama, going to these clubs without a mask on, not joining them in the OTAs. He looked pretty
in shape.
Yeah, he did not look in shape in his only preseason game he played. He looked like someone's stepdad out there. He did not. So I'm worried. On paper, they look great, and they would be higher ranked if it was just an on-paper thing. But there is going to be drama going throughout the whole season, and I think that's going to be issues that's going to make them not as great as they need to be, or as they could be. I don't know where he gets traded. If I had to guess, it's going to be a team like Portland. I would guess Portland. I throw CJ out there, give him a young player like Zach Collins or Gary Trent Jr., Anthony Simons, maybe a pick or two. I think he can do something like that. But I think there's going to be an issue with the drama next year. Yeah, they won't fulfill their potential.
And what's so crazy and what makes he's so good, he did all of this and he scored 44 points yesterday. Off of 12 of 22 shooting. Like, he's going to ball. I think if they get a prime John Wall, or even if they get a let's say 85% prime John Wall, and that's probably too high of what we'll get. But let's just say that's what we get. This team, and we'll go ahead and move into the 20. Do you have anything else to say on the vibe check before we move to 24 second?
They need another guard if they get over all the drama and everyone's healthy and everything else. Just pure basketball-wise, X's and O's-wise, they need a guard that can score off the bench. They need someone on the bench that can help a lot. There's a lot of options out there in terms of trade. Maybe go get someone like my brain's running dry right now, but just get a backup guard who can score.
Yeah. Now, if I'm not mistaken, Lou Will played for this team, right? Didn't they trade him and Eric Gordon?
And no, they traded him to the Clippers to get Chris Paul.
Wasn't Eric Gordon in that trade as well? Okay, I must be thinking of a different trade.
No, they signed Eric Gordon for free agency in like 2016 or something like that. They signed him and Ryan Anderson at the same time. Okay.
For some reason, I thought they were involved in a trade together. Either way. So I'm going to move on to the vibe check, or on to the 24 second. So, again, this Rockets team, if James Harden goes, this team's going to go. Regular season, they are a regular season team. They always have been. Probably always will be. I think this team is so you have them where at the
I have them as the 8th seed.
I think that's low. James Harden's a baller, drama or not. That the dude came out and shot amazing, and they won. And I think that, or they didn't win because of Portland's amazing, but that's
they lost.
Yeah, they lost because CJ McCollum scored 44 points because Harden can't play defense. But anyway, I think this team is probably going to be the 6th or 5th seed. They always end up being there. Again, that might be a little bit high, but it's hard for me to vote against James Harden. And I think John Wall is going to be good coming back. Even though he hasn't played in however many years. He has been working on his game, like athleticism, and I've seen some videos of him balling out, athletically at least. We'll see how that'll transfer back over to the NBA. Again, I see this team probably sitting at 6th seed. That's where I see them. I think you have them a little low.
I think they're 7th, 8th seed. I don't think they're an on-paper team. I think there's going to be a lot of – because also PJ Tucker had a lot of issues with the team last year. Robert Covington had a lot of issues. Eric Gordon had a lot of issues. There was issues across the board. Daryl Morey did a really good job of making James Harden feel wanted while he stayed there, but that turned into making everyone feel alienated because it was James Harden or nothing. So the rest of the team was disgruntled last year too. So it's just I think, and also this is a lot to put on a new front office, a new GM, and a new head coach. A lot of drama, a lot of ego, a lot of attitude. They lost that game because they didn't have leadership. James Harden can put a show all he wants. If it doesn't turn into W's, it doesn't turn into W's. I don't think he's going to miss the playoffs because he's that great. Regardless of disruption or injury to his team, he's going to make the playoffs. That's without a doubt. I don't think they're higher than 7th seed.
All right. Well, guys, that is our outlook on the Houston Rockets. Tell us what you think about them. Do you think we have them too high, too low? We'd love to hear from you. Again, Reno, take us out.
All right, guys. Thanks for watching Armchair Athletes. Like Ed said, please let us know if I have them too low or too high. I know Ed thinks I have them too low, which is great. I'm happy when we disagree. It's boring when we agree all the time. So, and that's the whole point. It's a community that talks about sports. I'm not right all the time. So you can ask Ed about Carson Wentz. I was the biggest Carson Wentz fan, and I was a believer, and he texts me every week and makes me sad, and I cry, and I write in my diary. Anyways, we'll see you guys next time. We're going to be going to a sunny side of America that has beautiful people, beautiful weather, a nice, pretty new stadium. We'll see you there next time. Peace out.
All right, guys, take it easy. We'll see you next time.
Peace.